I didn't have a business degree. I was a liberal arts major. Almost the first thing I take a look at with the contractors that I coach is their calendar. I trust this person with my money. You
Right.
go do that. Is we put owners together and we buy properties.
I think I was telling Haley, first time we connected was, I think I hit you up on LinkedIn. It's like, this dude's an investor. Like, we like to talk to investors as a software company. And you're like, but hey, I got this other business, this masonry business. Like, product looks cool. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
That's how I remember first coming in contact with you. Do I remember correctly?
That's
do you not know?
that's the power of LinkedIn,
I know. That's
right?
true.
Some people say that it doesn't work, but for you and me, it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, that was probably, I don't know, 2 years ago, something like that now.
Yep.
And so as we've gotten to get to know each other, it's been fun to see how you've both used the product, but then like just getting to know you a little bit. I know you're working with at least one of our other customers, Luke Reynolds, right?
All in painting.
Yeah. And you know, it's just, I feel like this conversation, we cover some ground, especially because we're in person. It's kind of like cool to you know, put some notes together. And so as you maybe start out question, what is your story getting started in the trades? I mean, you've done a lot of different stuff. I saw you're a franchisee owner, roofing. Now you're in the masonry side of things, doing some coaching. Like, where did it all get started?
Well, my dad was a police lieutenant in Chicago, and my whole life growing up, all of my sports teams were always sponsored by some kind of construction company that he had as a moonlighting gig.
Yeah.
And whether it was National Roofing or Avondale Roofing, he always would do that on the side. So when I went to school, I wanted to, flourish up in Minneapolis, is where I met my wife, who went to school. I thought I was going to stay up there forever. I got out of Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago. I said, I'm never going to come back. Love the people up in Minnesota. So we got married, had our first baby, and I could not make enough money selling life insurance. Sold all my friends and family, and then I needed money. So I called up my dad, and he had grown the roofing business when he retired to doing about $600,000 in sales. And so I asked him, hey, can I come back? I just need to get a solid job, save some money, and then we're busting back up to Minnesota.
Yeah.
So that was 30 years ago, and
Wow.
I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
So I took over the family roofing business more or less, and it was my dad was a typical entrepreneur that started this, but didn't have any of the computer skills or really the savviness of running a business. He was a policeman. So I was learning all of that. CRMs, computers, insurance.
And what year was that, roughly?
That was 1993.
All right.
So I came back in, and I didn't have a business degree. I was a liberal arts major. So I didn't know business, but I started knowing sales and marketing and CRMs. So I took over the family business, and we went from 600,000 to 6 million a year within 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was rocket growth. And I made every mistake in the book that, so taking on too much overhead, poor hiring practices, having family and friends in the business, poor partnerships. So that's probably another discussion, but that really fast growth. And then I get bored easy. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. And that's why you see that I went into franchise for indoor air professionals. We were doing restoration for HVAC. I bought a masonry company, which I still own. That's your best client, right?
That's right.
And many, many other kind of businesses, insulation. I'm just like a contractor at heart. And that's what I've been doing. And so 5 years ago, I really realized that one thing that I'm great at, one of my strengths is mentoring and coaching other business owners in their business, specifically contracting. So I put out a shingle to do that, and here I am coaching a lot of the great contractors across the country in their businesses.
Awesome. And I think I've got a couple of points that I've just got floating around in my mind to ask you about as we're chatting here. But one of them is franchise versus not. What was I think a lot of people are intrigued by that. A lot of contractors are intrigued by it. I think there's, obviously some pros and cons to, buying into a system versus doing it your own way. There's probably some personality stuff in there. Like, do you want to, just run a plan or do it your own? What has been your experience having experience in both the franchise side of things and then also the, kind of ground up or acquisition maybe? Talk a little bit about those dynamics and like what has been the pros and cons and for you.
Yeah, great question. So a great high school friend was doing air duct cleaning in Michigan and Ann Arbor area, and he was quoting me numbers of his net profit of what he was doing, with, maybe $500,000 of sales at that time, compared to what I was doing at over $6 million. We were making the same net profit. Wow. So I said, there's obviously a problem here. I have to look into this. The problem was, if you're an entrepreneur that likes any kind of control and how you want to do things, a franchise model is not good for you.
Yeah.
And that was one of the problems that I had, was they had systems that they wanted to use, but because they were a brand new franchise, learning and trying to figure out their systems and ways, that I was making a lot of changes. I was giving a lot of marketing advice. Here's how we should be branding. To their credit, they used a lot of my stuff. And that's probably why we grew so fast. It became one of the fastest growing franchises. It's called Ducts, DUCTZ, Indoor
Part
Air
of Belfour,
Professional.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You got a partnership with one of their groups too.
Do you? So, yeah. Yeah, the Belfour relationship was great. But for me, it was too confining, especially when Belfour bought it. Then now you're really locked in. Do it this way. Yeah. So, but for the person that doesn't have the entrepreneurial bent or no business, so if you were maybe working in the corporate world and now you want to start your own business, I think a franchise is an excellent way because they have proven systems.
Right.
Your upside is maybe a little bit capped, but the downside is you have some stability. So I saw a lot of success with owners that were just owners. They basically bought themselves a job.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty solid job. They had a little more freedom.
Yeah. So what does your day-to-day look like now? I know you're like doing a bunch of different stuff, and I didn't even mention the real estate stuff, the Airbnb rental stuff, and how do you structure your time? I always like to ask people, because my job is crazy in terms of like what hat I'm wearing at any given minute of the day, and I'm interested to know what that looks like for you in terms of like division of responsibility, how much of your time is in all the different buckets and like different aspects of ownership with the different things you got going on.
It's probably one of my secret sauces. And one of the things that almost the first thing I take a look at with the contractors that I coach is their calendar to see how they're structuring their days. If you look at my calendar, it's ridiculous, the level of detail that you'll be able to see where I'm spending my time. And I don't do that because I'm not a type A, but I know that the return on investment, I guess the analogy is, I played football, I coached my sons in football, that if your calendar is the game film of the prior week and the prior month. And if you don't look at your game film, you're not going to see what went wrong or what went right.
Right.
So I build out my calendar for the ideal week ahead of time, and I have big chunks. And so a typical week for me will look like Monday is heavy on the masonry business.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm meeting with my management team. We're doing a level 10 type of meeting, an hour and a half. We're making sure that everything's on track. We're looking at cash flow forecast. I make sure we have enough money. Is there any problems? And I take care of all the kind of money and management issues on Monday. Tuesday is then a free day for me to decide what I want to work on. Is it one of the new businesses that I'm working on? A little bit in the afternoon is some of the coaching of other contractors. So Tuesday's kind of a flex day for me. Wednesday is all coaching, one-on-ones with these high-powered guys that want to take it to the next level. I'm an introvert, so after back-to-back Zoom meetings, I need to go get a massage. So I love one of my mentors that I follow online is Robin Sharma, and
I think I've seen a guy. Yeah,
he's great.
Yeah,
he suggests 2 massages a week. I said I'll try one, and it's been a game changer.
Oh man, that sounds fantastic.
It's great. You have a reward for working hard.
Yeah.
So Thursday is again another day that I plug in creative time, fallback time, relationship development.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday is real loose to just be able to work on those other kind of businesses, the real estate, anything else that I want to work on.
Very interesting. What is how do you manage the aspects of things that with all of that variety, the things that you don't thrive at, either just like your personal self, obviously it's ideal to say you just offload all of it, but there are some things, especially when you're doing so many things, that you can't necessarily offload at some points. Do you structure that in a certain time of the day? How do you think about those like challenge point things? And maybe how do you manage the disruption of business when you've got your calendar all crazy, and for the record, this is asking for personal advice here.
Of course. Well, a couple of answers to that. One is, and on my calendar, it's marked red if it's stuff that I'm doing that I don't like to do, and potentially someone else could do it. So that's like the managing, organizing. So when I look back on my calendar, I'm looking at, is there a lot of red in there? In 30 years, I become very good at delegating, almost to a fault, where I'm just hoping that it's going to go as good as I want. And there's a lot of tools that I recommend using to capture that. But we have a couple great VAs from the Philippines that does a lot of this stuff that I don't want to do.
We literally just talked to a group out of the Philippines on their way to drive up from Indianapolis yesterday. So,
it's great. They're great. They're sharp people, and they deserve a lot of the work. And remote people all across the country that are doing some of this stuff. Like my team, one of our VAs is in Oklahoma, one's in California, 2 are in the Philippines. We have some in-house people that are in Chicago, obviously for the masonry business. You need that. But I'm big on delegating, and I'm big on not doing the things that doesn't give me energy. And if I have to do those, it's well scheduled in the later afternoon. That first part of the day is when you should be attacking your number one priority.
Right.
What's that one thing that's going to drive the business, your sweet spot that you're great at. Yeah.
I want to maybe dive in quickly to some of the tools you recommend for, organization or delegation or schedule management type of stuff. What are the go-tos there? And I realize it's probably different for different types of situations or different types of people, but what are some of the tools that you have used and found success with?
Well, right now there's a great tool called Notion,
Mm,
and it is a combination of Google Drive, Slack, WhatsApp, um, a bunch of other tools all in one.
mm-hmm.
And from who I follow, everyone is moving towards this app. So I brought my whole team on there, and we're slowly building the infrastructure so that anyone in your business, anyone as an outside vendor, can have access to all of the key documents that they need to be able to do their team. That's been a super good help. It also tracks tasks and to-dos. It's a project management tool
Mm-hmm.
that you can make sure that things are progressing. For me, when I have something on my mind, I want to get it out of my mind, get it on someone else's plate,
Yep.
and then I want to be reminded where it's at in the
Yeah.
process. I don't want to come back, a week later and say, "What happened?"
Yeah.
So that is a great tool for that. Slack is my go-to that I always recommend to my contracting owners to
Mm-hmm.
keep everyone on the same page. You're able to build channels for just the
Mm-hmm.
sales guys, the project management guys, the in-house staff. You can even build channels per project.
Mm.
So when we have a job larger than $20,000, we make a specific channel for that, add all the stakeholders in there. Anything related to that job, we're all in there and we're all keeping an eye on it. Gmail and Google Calendar is,
Mm-hmm.
the must. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It's probably my top
Yeah.
top four.
We use Notion internally, and I mean, we're a straight up software company, right? So
Yeah, that's
and
what a great
it's
testimonial right
yeah. I
there.
mean,
If you're using it,
yeah. I mean, I think that's the beauty of that tool, and I mean, I think it can be daunting. I mean, um, it's a blank canvas of sorts, so you really do have to work on it. And if you were to jump into like some of the crevices of our Notion instance, you'd probably Haley's about to freak out.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we're getting there. We're getting there. Every kind of division in our company has a project board, um, and that is becoming a way for us to communicate about like you know where things are. And you can create subtasks, and there's some cool stuff that they're rolling out. There's an AI. I just got access to the
yeah.
AI portion of Notion. Haven't messed around with that too much, but yeah, the Notion's a really cool tool. It does take some time. I think one of the things that struck me that when you're talking about delegation and even just like outsourcing, whether it be domestically or the Philippines or wherever, um, when you get to that point of delegation, it really does force you to write a business process of sorts. Because if somebody's jumping into your business for 30 minutes to do a thing, they don't have the context that you have. They weren't in that meeting to hear the other update. It's just you have to build that, and that's what I think Notion can be really powerful for. Is like, hey, here's the thing. I wrote up. We're at a trade show here, and I wrote up how we do trade shows. Right? Like, here's the process. Here's
Perfect.
exactly what you have to
One
do,
time,
and then that's
one
going to
time, and
eventually, at some point, get me out of doing trade shows.
yes, faster the better.
The faster, the better. So,
A compliment to Notion that I forgot to mention was Loom is a big one for me. Do you
mm-hmm.
guys use Loom?
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, tons of Loom. Yeah.
that's almost a standard operating
Yep.
procedure right in itself.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that app too.
Yeah, the Loom stuff. I mean, we use that. I was actually we had an update in our system. There's like a little oddity thing going on, as there are with any software tool. And in my makeshift Loom thing, I just shot a quick video of the iPad demo from my phone, but basically what that allows us to do, whether it's using your phone to capture a video thing, or it's Loom that does kind of a screen share capture. In our world, videos the thing, right? Like that's what we work on. And it's
You're the
not.
poster boy for it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like if we're not using it to communicate internally, then what type of imposters are we? But the beauty of some of those tools is that they're easy, they're inexpensive, and the time savings you can get compared to like typing out like an issue or something like that. You just get to add a whole lot more flavor with the video side of things. So there's a ton of upside for Loom. I think Loom is free for up to 25
Yep.
videos or something like that. We've certainly blown past that, so we pay them.
Yeah, we pay
I
them
don't know
too.
how much money, but it's worth it.
I think it's only $10 a month.
I
Yeah.
don't even think I care about it because it's such a valuable tool.
And I know your app has now a feature that we could reply.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So inside of Groundwork, it's Loom-ish, I will say. So like you have the ability to respond with a personalized video
Love that.
to the
on the desktop app or only?
Either.
Oh,
Either.
really?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'll have to
Yeah.
test it out because
Yeah.
I've been putting in Loom videos. When the customer says, "Here's my thing,"
yeah,
I go
yeah.
record their
Yep.
over
And
their
if you-
pictures.
Yeah, we should do it. Get you on with Christian to give you like a tutorial on some of that other stuff. But yeah, that's I think the overall thought with product in general is like there's a lot of great stuff going on in the general world of business apps. And, we certainly will be developing and, have in development some features that are uniquely Groundwork features.
Exciting.
But there's also a whole world of applications that serve other businesses really well. And if we can, not reinvent the wheel on everything and just say like, hey, we have a slightly different flow of things, but we can include kind of the best in breed of all these other products in addition to what we do, very uniquely inside of Groundwork. It's a big focus as we continue to develop. Have you seen we just connected with a guy, lives in Virginia, and he was, I looked at his LinkedIn profile. I was like, holy smokes, this dude is an aeronautical engineer out of University of Virginia, which their engineering school, by the way, is like pretty darn good. Like it's a pretty nice institution to have a diploma from. Aeronautical engineer, worked at NASA and some other, space
rocket scientist.
Yeah, it's basically a rocket scientist. And he's running an outdoor living hardscaping business now and just crushing it.
Yeah, probably making $500,000 a year in his pocket.
I mean, have you seen that shift? Is that new to see some of those moves being made, or?
Well, if I look in my Twitter threads,
mm-hmm.
so many people are buying these businesses that are being handed down, or
mm-hmm.
people are retiring. So the really smart money is buying these service-based businesses and having a lot of success because they do print money once you have all of the systems. Yeah. Once you get that locked in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's all sorts of private equity stuff and whatever else that's, I don't think it's made it to some subsets of the trades, but I mean, HVAC, like I've got a buddy who gets a call weekly.
All of my roofing companies that I coach, they're getting those emails and letters weekly.
Yep. So, I think the other interesting aspect of kind of what you've got going on is the real estate side of things. And a lot of people are like looking to get into other stuff and diversify a little bit. Once you kind of get there, it's kind of like, all right, what do we do now? How long have you been playing the real estate game? What's that look like now? Talk a little about that.
So one of my strongest regrets, now being 55 and being in the trades this length of time, is not having exposure to real estate up until the last 5 years. So it's really one of my biggest regrets because I have worked for some of the largest developers and real estate property managers, and they're all, more or less multi-millionaires. Yep. So as I was coaching these other contractors and we developed friendships, what we realized was when your business starts making money and you got that dialed in, real estate is one of the best investments for you to shelter some tax income and start getting some of those investments, put away for your future generations. And it's the long game. So one of the areas that we had some experience in, me and my wife, was in the short-term rentals. And everyone has heard about this Airbnb craze.
Right.
And when we started, 3 years ago, everyone was very interested in it.
Yeah.
And so we started off in an arbitrage model where we were just renting properties and putting them on Airbnb and making them spread. Once we proved the model out, we decided, hey, this is a lifestyle investment. A lot of my owners that I was coaching, they have families. They would love to have a place in Nashville to go to, to stay with their family, or Lincoln Park in Chicago, or Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have one in the Dominican Republic. So what we do is we put owners together and we buy properties and let the short-term rental business pay for the mortgage, and even in most cases have some surplus income come back to the owners. And now they're also getting the depreciation, which is helping with their taxes. And overall, it's just a smarter investment. And now we're able to pool, 4 to 6, sometimes 8 different owners all into some investments where normally you can't do it on your own.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's called syndication. It's another thing when I say I'm a serial entrepreneur, I just said, I'm going to learn about syndications. And I bought, the top 5 books on syndication. I got a mentor and paid him a lot of money and said, this is where I want to go. And just did what he said, did what the book said. And now we're off in that realm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We'll have to talk about your spot in Dominican Republic. It sounds nice, but
might have to do a podcast there.
Hey, now we're talking, right? Yeah. I had a question about how you. Oh, I know what it was. The arbitrage model. I've heard of that. Sounds like it's made up to me, right? Like I'm just like I'm a finance person, so like I understand that, but I also know somewhat. I mean, we sold a bunch of houses and renovated and all that stuff. How does that work from a lease perspective? Is there anything in the lease agreement that prevents you from doing that? Are you just smartly picking locations? How does that arbitrage model work?
And that's a whole another topic that you need to research and get a hold of. And there's a lot of great books and mentors there. But the long story is, you can never do it if you don't have the landlord or the main owner of the apartment building know what you're doing.
Sure.
Because it has to be written in the lease.
Yeah.
That they understand that this is going to be a short-term rental. Because if you do that and there's problems, then it's a whole
you just fall apart.
It's it's a lot of aggravation.
Attorneys and everything else. Yeah.
So we got in by finding the interesting units that the landlords were interested in doing that because they had a lot of inventory that they needed to fill. So it's just a matter of betting on the market that what you're paying in rent, usually you can, 2x or 3x bring in the revenue for.
Yep.
But there's pitfalls there too. Like our first 2 that we ended up doing, we ended up not getting the leases renewed after 2 years. And now you're stuck with all of this furniture and goodwill and great reviews. What do you do with them? Yeah. You scramble.
Right.
So then we said, we're never doing this again. We're going to buy and
but I mean, you stack up those learnings, right? Of like how to do it and market it. And
we took action.
You have some resources to flip the units and, all that stuff. So very interesting.
Yeah. We built the brand on the first couple.
When would you recommend a contractor start to look at that type of stuff? Right. Cause like, I think that could be a shiny object to many people, and shiny objects, they call it shiny object syndrome because it's a syndrome that can be detrimental.
I have it, an incurable,
Yeah.
incurable
How have you
version.
managed that? Because I mean, somebody listen to this be like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing that tomorrow," and then they just like kind of forget
Yeah.
about other stuff, and there seems to be some point where it's like, okay, you got your stuff tight enough. Are there any metrics or different ways that you think about, like, hey, you might be ready for this type of thing?
Well, I'm a big fan of Strength Finders, that assessment.
Yeah.
And, my strengths always fell into the category. My two main strengths were activation. So if there's an idea, if I'm working with someone and they have an idea, I can get it going. I'll have the next 3-5 moves.
Yeah.
And then the second one was maximization. So if it's a good business, it's a good idea, I can make it, really good.
Yeah.
Kind of like what I did with my dad at 600,000, took it to 6 million. My weakness is I see all ideas as this is a great idea.
Yeah.
I'll activate it. And I usually activate it. And I guess what my advice would be to those people that have these ideas and they can't, it's too many shiny balls, is that don't do anything unless you know that you have a team behind you that could execute on your idea once it's activated. And so that's what I've been fortunate to do, is that I get the idea going and then I hand it off, or I hire a general manager, or a third party. I trust this person with my money. You go do that. That might be the first thing to do, is instead of them doing it all on themselves, the first couple of ideas like this, real estate, crypto, they go with someone that has some experience. They get their feet wet, and then they decide, was this a shiny ball or was this, very good?
Right. And it's almost like, just be honest with yourself about how much you can actually push the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Like, do you really think that you're going to dedicate all this time to this new thing that you really know nothing about?
Right.
Like, that's the
but you and I have our common market is owners of construction businesses. And for me, the easy way for any of these guys or girls to get into the real estate space is find a good real estate agent that knows about real estate investments and the flipping game. Because for us owners of construction businesses, that's the first step. And it sounds like you maybe have done a couple of those, but buy a property, you have crews, you have great trade resources and friends. Go flip a couple, see if you like the business, and decide, do you want to flip it? Do you want to put a renter in there? And all of a sudden you're in the real estate game.
And I think the interesting part about that is syndication can sound like a big thing, but really all it is like getting some people that
like-minded.
Yeah, like-minded people who want to go in on a project together. And at some point it does end up being, it's not like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's tens of thousands of dollars a lot of times to get going.
Yeah, some of our investors for $12,500, they're a part owner of Airbnb.
Yeah, and they get a weekend in Nashville or whatever.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I appreciate you